Why are we so obsessed with horror? This isn't a bad obsession, though it is quite addictive. At least it is to me. This grime can be defined in several different ways, from the overall nature of an environment to albums such as Kanye West's Yeezus and Portishead's Dummy. The major focus on bass-infused mayhem on Yeezus and smooth yet sinister flow on Dummy. I know those are two different musical directions, and yes, this video is all about games, but those projects give me a sense of unease, yet always brings me back for another listen. I just want to put emphasis on Portishead's style. The production of their music is the highlight in which has inspired many musicians, one of the prominent ones being Akira Yamaoka of the Silent Hill series. Not only music is a major influence, but films and even books are. Films like The Shining and Jacob's Ladder have shaped what psychological horror has expressed throughout the years. Something so simplistic like a mansion constantly repeating itself can be the most terrifying thing if it's done well. If things are flying at you all the time, this will cause one to be overwhelmed. But if the game says, hey, you're safe for now, and gives you a break for a quick moment, then starts to fade into the cutscene, then has a music cue, then spawns the big scary monster boss man, now that's what I like to call terror. The big difference from video game storylines to movie storylines is that movies tend to leave a lot of the explanations open-ended, where games tend to describe everything in its entirety by little notes you can find, or even downright tell you the backstory of a character. I honestly wish that the developers actually had two brain cells to say, ooh, in for mature, and explain nothing about the game, nothing about the plot, maybe little notes that give you little, and I mean little, details about the character. This is so you as the player can actually make your own assumptions and draw your own plot and theories. This is kind of a stretch, but I relate this to the web series / unreleased game Petscop and maybe even PT. When Petscop got the attention of many, it started a lot of investigations and theories. No one knew what this was. You would really have to dig deep in order to find any substance at all. When I think of anything to deal with a game in this genre, I always think of something decaying in nature. I don't know why we associate horror with wasteland or grainy type landscapes. It just seems so appealing. Take something like Resident Evil 4, very dry and dull in nature, creating an atmosphere based on such low lighting and deranged psychopaths that throw hatchets at you. The complete opposite being the 6th installment. I don't really classify games such as RE6 or Dead Space 3 as quote-unquote horror games, because they really don't look or feel the same as a traditional horror game. Dead Space was one of the first times I'd ever laid my eyes on something horror related. This game took what I knew as Luigi's Mansion and the THX opening screen and spun it on its head. Something about it just captivated me further and further. Redwood Shores or Visceral Games really hit this one out of the park, enhancing the series with its 2nd installment. My only nitpick with this type of narrative is you see it time and time again. Some dude gets a message from a loved one, doesn't even question it one bit, and goes for the search. I mean, if my knowledge was telling me, hey, this person's dead, and you might not want to go after them since you know that they are definitely dead, I would definitely say no. Let me be clear before I go any further. Yes, there are many games that try the jump scare gimmick. You see, in Dead Space, that terror is continued through and through the deeper you go into the Ishimura, which brings me to my next thing that lingers in my mind always while I'm playing these games. The Abyss. Every hour I sink into a game of any type, I always think I'm going further and further into an abyss. This is very apparent in horror games, even admitting it in Silent Hill. Going through these constant jumps into pits and the use of elevators like a maze. Oh, and who doesn't love a puzzle every now and then to test your sanity? The oversaturation of a shoot and kill constantly doesn't really supply a good scare. The terror of a game needs to be encapsulating, fully immersing you in any sort of way. Titles like Dead Space, Silent Hill, or even Eternal Darkness give off this terror in many different ways, whether it be toying with you through puzzles to give you a break, then all of a sudden I found it very odd with this in Silent Hill 2. I would enter a room, and there would be no enemies, but there would be that type of music. I wonder if this was a bug or something they forgot to patch before launch. And of course we have to talk about the darkness. At some point we were all afraid of the dark as a child. The only thing lighting up our room is a nightlight or a pillow pet. There's one thing when the only light you have shining is a nightlight, and another is when the light is the game. And if that game crashes, be prepared, because you'll probably have a panic attack like me. Silence is everything when you're traveling the escapes of any game. Take a game like Rainbow Six Siege. Simple casual first-person shooter, right? There are times when I'm sneaking around trying to find the other operators. I get that adrenaline rush in my brain as soon as I get surprised with a bullet in my skull. Maybe it's some mechanical parts down the hall and dare I say it, or the looming static growing stronger as you go down the hall in Silent Hill. Now let's talk horror game protagonists. All of these wusses, except one.
Hey, what are you looking at? Oh, you pervert!
Leon Kennedy. Yes, the legend himself. This man fights all kinds of ginormous monsters that look straight out of Power Rangers. Obviously, James Sunderland could never, fighting demons only he can see, but clearly Konami doesn't know their storylines very well. I mean, if you're this bored to get people's nostalgia up just to put Pyramid Head on Silent Hill Homecoming, what does it solve? Isaac Clarke, on the other hand, being a blend of the two. Although I found it quite lackluster when it came down to the complexity of Dead Space storyline, basically borrowing the whole plot from Silent Hill 2, except you're definitely equally brain dead as James. Now in Until Dawn, you play as several different characters. Can you guess how many people are dumb enough to go in the woods alone, even if they go in with a couple of people? Do you guess how many people survive? I mean, yes, you can get several people to survive, and I think you can get all the people to survive, but...
Why?
It's made me come to the realization that the use of emotions used in a plot always has a deeper meaning, to the point where you can find flaws in your own personality. Evangelion and Silent Hill resembling this perfectly. The many struggles found in different characters throughout both stories can make you see what you or certain people go through in life. Plus the emotions used are somewhat similar. Resident Evil 4 revolutionized and really reached to other elements to spice things up, with everything getting bigger and the use of QuickTime events. Oh god, how we love those. Capcom deciding to upscale from its predecessors, taking 4 versions of development cycles in order to get the right match. One of those cycles later turning into what is known as Devil May Cry. Okay, let's see here. What stands out most in the game other than the gameplay itself? That's right, voice acting.
Ha! You're just a gutless fatso!
What'd you have to say that for?
I thought you said the cops were after you.
No, I just ran because I was scared.
Okay. Eddie, let's go after her.
Huh? Laura? But why?
Laura, is that her name?
That's what she said.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
She said she was fine by herself. She said a fatso like me would just slow her down.
There's loads of good and bad examples of this. Sure, Silent Hill and Resident Evil can be cheesy at some times, but can make itself up with the gameplay. Michigan Report from Hell is definitely not the brightest side of voice acting. The best up-to-date voice acting in my book is in the Resident Evil remakes. Remakes and remasters have plagued the new age of gaming. It's crazy how companies can change so much about the game just to ruin the play value. Don't get me wrong, new added content is great and all, but some people just want the game itself. If some weird bug was in the original port, yeah, you can go ahead and fix that, but be careful of doing too much. It's made me wonder why Nintendo only released Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in HD collections. It'd be amazing to see something like Super Mario 64 remastered or even remade from the ground up. The first successful horror game was released in 1992 for the PC and was simply called Alone in the Dark. Keep in mind, Street Fighter II came out in 1991. This was a major shift in gears when it came down to it, and the coolest part is it actually had voice acting. Other than the fact that you walked like a turtle, yes, this was a success, inspiring Capcom to cash in on their idea of Biohazard, aka Resident Evil, in America and Europe. Now that we got that history lesson out of the way, let's take a look at what we have today.
I never asked for this.
Okay, I can admit that we've been in a drought in recent years. Dead Space abandoned because of sales, Silent Hills cancelled with rumors spreading monthly, all the rest except a few lacking in originality when it came down to it. the only ones that have adapted being Resident Evil and stuff like Blair Witch Project or Outlast. There is that one new title that Xbox showed off in their quote-unquote gameplay showcase, and I'm actually perplexed that someone actually chose Akira Yamaoka for the music. It'd be a shame for this to come out half-baked, but I'm so glad this is in the works. Oh, and who can forget the Silent Hill movies? I sure can. They try to project a full-fledged story, but it just comes off as a compilation of all the games into one cinematic cutscene. Not to mention the god-awful Resident Evil series of films. These are on the list of the things we really don't need to remember on this channel. Terror has made me think about situations differently, whether it's in real life or in game. It sets the bar for what I like to see and what sets off my adrenaline rush. See, that's all the looming terror is. A big adrenaline rush. Only leading you to come back time and time again, just like the albums I mentioned earlier. One of the games that had this effect being Resident Evil 7. I absolutely loved when this game came out. 7 single-handedly saving the Resident Evil franchise, and I am so glad that they took this route. Sure, some people didn't like the fact that it strayed away from the main games, but I genuinely enjoyed the good majority of this game. And Jesus Christ, this game is creepy as all get out. And I get it, the whole storyline isn't original when it first starts off, but when you actually get into it, you realize that it's way more messed up than what James had to suffer through. Ethan had to stick his hand through a cop's neck and dig out a key. Legitimately, I almost threw up during my playthrough because how inhuman it was. The internet has tons of shocking things that one could stay up all night over. One of my favorite YouTubers, Nexpo, documenting disturbing things found on the internet. His recent video all about Ben Drowned, a creepypasta created by Alexander Hall. Creepypastas can span from anything from Squidward's suicide, Slender Man to even old folk tales of Wendigos. Some of these origins can be found on 4chan, leading down rabbit holes of disturbing imagery and discovery. At a young age, I discovered most of this through YouTube. I found it fascinating that these stories are well constructed and sometimes real. Gotta love a good night to sit and watch some scary internet stories.
Oh, no, I've been out. Well, that's just here about. What is it? Who is this size of out? All right, so well. Helbar. I am out. The nose must get up, because well. And those guys that posture has not in the theater, down the slow. There's Melbourne is built set. And this guy's knocking the light. I hear over the law, at least.
Now, if you're one of those people that can really get into a game to the point to where you grade yourself, these are the games you need to play. All the games I've talked about have a grade at the end or some type of new game plus, and what would a game be without its little secrets? Starting off with James having a clone of himself sitting in a chair dead. I found this one quite interesting, being that dead James is actually fully rendered rather than having a low poly figure. Also, the secret endings in Silent Hill tie into one another through animated cutscenes. Harry and James finding Heather in Silent Hill 3. And well, we all should know the Sheba ending by now. Resident Evil 4 having the broken butterfly, a revolver resemblant to the gun in Clint Eastwood's Sudden Impact. The details about this gun read, a very powerful .45 Magnum revolver. This will make anyone's day. Something tied to that reference is Gorillaz' music video for their song, Clint Eastwood, showing T-Virus on 2D's shirt. PT had a little hidden message behind two different familicides. This message is gradually overlaid by the same man saying, well, I'll just let you take a listen because I definitely can't replicate the
His 6-year-old daughter has the intent to hide in the bathroom, but reports the death lured her out by telling her this is just a game. The girl was found shot once in the chest. Another was shot in the stomach. 204-3. Soon after neighbors called 911, found the father in his car listening to the radio. Several days before the murder, look behind you. I said, look behind you. Like he was chanting some strange spell. There was another family shot to death in the same November last year, a man used a rifle and meat cleaver to murder his entire family. In each case, the perpetrators were fathers. State police say this string of domestic homicides appears under 204863 child care and other
PT is a breakup letter. As I mentioned earlier, this demo made fans turn into hardcore investigators, because nothing was clearly explained other than yes, this is the next Silent Hill game, except this wasn't the case at all. This playable teaser gives you insight into what Kojima predicted would happen in the matter of 2 years. Kojima knew what was going to happen, stating through the aborted fetus,
"You remember, right? Exactly 10 months back."
10 months before gaining the knowledge of his inevitable departure from the company and the destruction of Kojima Productions. The two alternate realities the paper bag talks about is the one where Konami actually releases Silent Hills, and the other, well, the one that we live in as of now. The trailer at the end of the demo is a direct message to Konami itself, Konami being the dad that wants the same games made over and over with the help of the Fox engine, killing off all of what Kojima worked up to, Lisa resembling the Fox engine itself, the colored flashlight equaling out to Sony, the aborted fetus being Silent Hill itself, the dad/Konami killing himself as a good-hearted family game company, only to put himself further in a hole with this neglect of franchises that they could capitalize on. Kojima wanted to put the message out there that this is the real Konami, this is what they've done to themselves.
The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?
Thanks for watching my video. Will forgot to record an outro for this video, so enjoy some of his friends' music now playing Ryan Hall Dreams.
Ash falling from a pedestal, it's all melted in your chemicals. Call me the one, now it's just a dream. You said that we'd be in a limousine, but now you're far and I'm on your leash. I feel like a dog trapped by the queen. Try changing me, becoming your pristine, but I can't go there, it's not my dream. I wanted what I said to you, call it enough when you wouldn't come through. Pushing down is my darkest dream. Don't bite at me with your shining teeth. No, from my sleep. I only wish you kept me from my sleep. Never thought you'd keep me from my dreams. I only wish you kept me from my sleep. I never thought you'd keep me from my dreams.